Hi friends! This is Miss M back with some more fun activities to help with our speech and language skills. It's been a while, but I'm glad to be back. I took a couple weeks off just to take a little mental break. But we are here and we're going to talk all about how to use our Mr. Potato Heads. Now, this has got to be one of every speech language pathologist's favorite toys, the potato head. And there's a reason why, because there's so many great ways to incorporate speech sounds, language skills, and play skills in one fun activity. But the first thing I want to do before we even get started is let you know, or remind you rather, that we want to be always using our observe, wait, and listen strategies. We want to be repetitive and we want to be enthusiastic and keep things fun so the fun keeps going and our little ones stay engaged. So that being said, I also want to remind you, maybe I haven't said this enough on here, but I have this thing, the rule of two. And the rule of two for me basically means I always want to try, especially during play or language-based activities, I always want to try to have two of something because that helps with imitation. So if I have one Mr. Potato Head and I'm working on maybe putting something in the same place as my student, or I want my student to do that in imitation of me, it's not as effective as if I have two potato heads so I can use one and the student can use one. Now, the reason I want to do Mr. Potato Head, not only because it's just such a great way to give you some little activity tidbits to do when working on speech and language skills, but I've also seen it where, you know, especially in the preschool, we have tubs and tubs of Mr. Potato Heads with all the good stuff that goes on it. I mean, all the mustaches and noses and glasses, different kinds of shoes that our students can choose to create their own and give their potato head their own identity. But many times I see or have seen that big tub of potato head things gets dumped out onto the carpet for a carpet time activity, but then there's no guidance on how to play with our potato heads. And some kids come in and they know how to do it, and then some kids don't always know how they want to play, and they luckily have their peers as models, right? But this can kind of help you with some ideas on how to act in some guided play. So, do you like my Darth Vader potato head? I know some of you SLPs that are Star Wars fans might like this. Shout out to the little family, by the way, for donating more than half of these potato heads. Actually, I think only one of them is mine. So thank you guys. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about when doing Mr. Potato Head is some basic vocabulary. Now, there's a lot of different functional things that our potato heads can teach us. They can teach us things like on. We can put our hat on. Can you see that? You probably couldn't see that. Oops, one more time. On. They can take the hats off or take the parts out, right? When we're cleaning up. Helpful cleanup tip. We can work on yes and no. We can talk about, is this a leg? Is this a nose? Right? And then we can get silly and we can talk about being silly. Oh, that's so silly. Miss M, your potato head doesn't look quite right. That's so silly. And it's another way to kind of embrace a child's creativity, because maybe this has a purpose for them, right? Maybe they would rather their arm be on the top of their head, and we could talk about that. Why? So I could reach the candy on the top of the fridge. That would be my answer. Well, or the bagels. Or the avocado oil that gets really up high in a cabinet that I can't reach because I'm a short person. Okay, anyway, so those are different things that we can do to get that language going. We can also talk about needing help. Sometimes, especially when we're working with some fine motor, oh yeah, good fine motor activities too, by the way. Just putting in and out, right? Because you have to really, see, I need help right now. You have to really pull or you have to really push, two other really great vocabulary words for this activity. And then you can talk about what the potato head would wear and object functions. So we'll go a little bit into more depth with that because I want to show you something that I like to call creative stupidity. And this is where Mr. Potato Head for me gets to be the most fun. I learned about creative stupidity when I was back in grad school. It was one of those activities, or not really activities, but strategies that I was taught to use with my really little ones in early language intervention, as well as with my clients who are on the autism spectrum and who maybe needed a little bit of extra incentive or motivation to stay engaged in an activity that was helping them use their communication functionally. And so creative stupidity looks a little bit something like this. So if I'm building my potato head and my client is building his or hers, I might take mine and say, let's put our eyes on. We're gonna put them right here. Is that where they go? Now it might make your client laugh. It might make them get really frustrated that you don't know where eyes go, or they might not notice at all and they might do what you do, or they might just keep going with whatever they're doing. So if that doesn't work, take the eyes off and maybe say, or is this where they go? And you might put them, on your head. Now, usually I can get my toys to stay on my head. I have a magic gift of that happening the most when I'm with a client. But obviously when I'm filming this for you, they don't like to stay on my head. But here we go. We've got them on our head. And this really gets the client's attention. I also notice with my little ones, for the most part, they love eyes. So I always like to start with the eyes with Mr. Potato Head for some reason. That's just something I've learned. Another tactic that I learned from Jenny Bjorm at Bjorm Speech was to get some blue painter's tape and tape objects to your face and talk about whether or not they go there, and maybe don't let your client rip it off though. It works better in teletherapy, but still, it could be something because you see the blue tape and you see the eyes up there. That just doesn't look like what we're used to seeing, right? And we could talk about that. Or we could have them request to take off. So I like that because then we can talk about where our eyes go and why. Why do they go here? Oh, because our eyes are on our face to help us see. What do our eyes do? There's your object function, right? They help us see. And then we can talk about, okay, what should we put on next? Now, let's say your client says he needs hands, right? Great, he needs hands. And again, go back to, okay, there I go. Oh, it's wrong? Uh-oh. And look at all those expressions you can build into one quick act of putting something in the wrong place. I love it. And I always am recommending making mistakes because mistakes, they help us learn in life, right? So think about that, having you done that creative mistake for your child to be able to learn or kind of solidify that knowledge of where arms are on our body. Oh, and there we go. Pro tip, you're working on body parts. That's why I love Mr. Potato Head, guys. We're working on body parts, we're working on object function. We could even, now this works best if you have multiple items, right? We could even be working on what's wrong here. Oh, there's too many what? Too many eyes. How many eyes do you see? And then you can 1, 2, 3, 4. Does Miss M have 4 eyes? No, Miss M only has 2 eyes. What belongs here? Now eyes, right? And we can be working on all of those, the negatives in our language. No eyes, not eyes. We have too many eyes, things like that. Now, if you want to make learning plurals a little bit easier, don't use eyes. Use like 2 noses or something, right? Because there's already 2 eyes on a face. So that meaning 4 eyes, yeah, that's too many. But now you can talk about, these are both supposed to be noses, okay? Okay. So now you can talk about there's 2 noses, and then you get that extra morpheme inflection in there. Noses. We only want 1 nose, so which one should we take out? And then you can have your child tell you and request which one to take out or take off. Also, if you need a Santa hat, if you have a Santa hat for your potato head, great. Themes. All right. Another thing that I want to recommend that you would do with your potato head is having a picture of a potato head that looks the way maybe you would think a potato head would look. I'm trying to creatively say this, so I'm not making it feel like we have to stifle our little ones' creativity, because when they create something like this is a great talking point, okay? This is something, again, why would we have a hand on our head? Miss M wants one like that. She already told you, I want to be able to reach my avocado oil that's always in the top shelf. Another thing too about this one is, you know, you could talk about, well, hold on. This kind of looks right? I mean, if I had a client or a student make this and I was just doing an observe, wait, and listen, let's say, and I said, go ahead, play. And they did this. I mean, is it completely wrong? Or again, I don't want to say wrong, but is it completely different than something like this? Not really. Maybe just, you know, the sides of the head were confused, but if you look at a potato head, there's a reason we call it potato head, right? It's kind of like an abstract situation going on here. So if you look at this, I mean, would you expect maybe a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old to necessarily know which one is the front? No. So great, we can talk about front, we can talk about side, and we can talk about back. And if you have your example or your model or you're doing imitation, I wouldn't discredit this. I think that this is, if I had a client do this, I'd be like, yes, we're done. Let's go on to, you know, some more creative stupidity, and you tell me what to change about mine or whatever. Oh, also, quick, before I go on to the last part here. Potato heads, if you have multiple and you're working with students, and I did this a lot when I worked with the elementary school age kids, I would do barrier activities where you put up a big, like, either like poster board or some kind of a barrier in between you and your client, and then you can't see what they're doing and they can't see what you're doing, and you take turns building. So you have the same exact thing. So you have a pair of shoes, they have a pair of shoes. You have teeth, they have teeth. You have a nose, you get it, right? And then what you can do is you can have them tell you where to put everything and vice versa. And this works really well. Again, I wouldn't be discrediting things if something like this happened, but you can talk about where the back of a potato head is, right? Because most backs of the potato head have the flap. So you know that that's the back. And then on the opposite side would be the front, right? So then you can talk about that and maybe make sure that you know when you start, the front is facing each of you. That's a little idea for you. So that way, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't work with preschoolers, Miss M, there you go. You're welcome. And then you can work on, you know, having pretend play situations with your potato heads, right? So maybe now we're working on actions, and I have Johnny over here saying, I want him to run. Okay, run, and I'll chase. You know, or we both run, and then I can get him to maybe now imitate me, right? And say, okay, let's jump. Let's make our potato heads jump, right? Let's make them high five and things like that. So another really great way to do it. But again, rather than just dumping out all the potato head and potato head parts on the ground and saying, go ahead and play, if we're working on some of these specific language skills and we know we have little ones that might be a little bit more confused when we do that, these are some great tidbits and different ways for you to kind of get in there and follow your child's lead, as I always say, but engage with them. Remember, hold your potato heads up. You could talk about, you know, looking at each other in the eye when we say hi. I know sometimes that's a goal that we're working on with my students, is that eye contact. Not that I'm very stressed about eye contact. That is something that I can talk on another day. But when we are working on things like that, again, those body parts are really great because they're so relatable for our little ones, right? And then again, when you're using your picture, I kind of got off topic, but when you have something like this for your client to look at or your child to look at and talk about where things go and then have them build it, that's just another level of complexity of maybe doing that one-to-one correspondence and matching. I don't know, just having some fun with it, but learning too. Isn't that what we're all here for? Yeah. So I think that's all I got for you on this one. I keep trying to kind of rack my brain and make sure I didn't miss anything with the potato heads. But again, I just, you know, I of course wanted to share my awesome potato head collection with you because it is something that really excites me as a preschool speech language pathologist. And I also just want to encourage you, remember, I'm always trying to use things on these videos that you might have access to really easily, right? I know maybe not every kiddo at home has potato heads, but if you do, this is a great way to use what you have at home. Another thing, if you don't have a potato head, okay, and you want to try stuff like this, you can do these kinds of things. You can use that creative stupidity. It doesn't have to be with potato heads. You could use that when you're playing with blocks and putting blocks on your head or dinosaurs on your head. You can have the dinosaurs imitate actions, okay? You can talk about body parts on your stuffed animals and on your dollies and all those things. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of the things that I'm on here showing you in these videos, yes, I'm using certain things, but my goal is for you to feel like you can do these with what you already have. All right, I'm gonna go, but I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you ever have any questions or concerns or want some feedback or have a request for certain things you want to see, please don't hesitate to email me or respond to this video. And I look forward to seeing you next time with some more fun things. All right, bye friends.